Neal Kravitz from Washington, D.C. Well, I've really lived in dental offices. Growing up, I um, had a little bit of a challenging set given to me. I was born with some missing teeth and really had wonderful experiences. Really at the oral surgeon that I went to as a kid. And I ended up volunteering and then working for him in high school and then throughout college. And I thought for the longest time I wanted to be an oral surgeon. There's a side of me that really loves that aspect, but I just fell in love with orthodontics. I had a great lecturer, Joe Ghaffari. He's a legendary orthodontist from Lebanon who was my orthodontic instructor. And after his class, it really became very clear to me that this is what I wanted to do. But I find myself to be very lucky to be an orthodontist. I don't know if anybody likes their job more than I do. Orthodontics means taking care of families. I mean, you are taking care of not just one generation, but you could probably take care of two or three generations over your career. So it's really very special to be able to not only do great work and really have transformative work. I think probably the only equivalence to orthodontics in dentistry would be full mouth restorative dentistry, where you're doing full mouth makeovers. But within 3 years, we completely can transform someone. It has an incredible impact. I don't know if anybody gets the results that we get when we take off braces, and that moment is a very special moment, and we get it, 10 times a day, and it's pretty amazing. It's a creative field. It's one where we're thinking all the time. It's a field where we're able to think on the fly and treatment plan and really have to get very creative with our approach. Really, not just with our treatment plan overall, but really at each appointment trying to figure out how we're going to move from A to B. So I love that aspect of it. So I love the bigger picture aspect of it, of treating families and generations and really transforming an individual. And I also love the tinkering aspect and the engineering aspect that happens every second of every appointment. I think orthodontics is about self-confidence and maturation and growth, and it is a field of incredible happiness. So we actually have certainly we have a functional aspect, but the transformative aesthetic benefit during very difficult times for people, right, while they're growing up, during adolescence, is so important. And I think orthodontists play a major role in helping children during that time. Um, I, I was a very average place kicker on our football team at college. So I had a college career in sports. I loved I was a place kicker. I enjoyed that. And So that was a very fun time in my life to be able to have an experience as a college athlete. Well, I think the most difficult case to treat, aside from, just non-compliance. So there's the old line that I always use, that I'd rather have a hard case with an easy patient than an easy case with a hard patient. So aside from just compliance and brushing aside, I think the hardest case is when we're dealing with musculature that is working opposed from us. One of the great lines that I always remember from the legendary orthodontist Andy Haast, who really popularized the expander in the 1950s, really took it from Europe and made it popular in the US, was that muscle wins. Muscle wins. I always say that line in my office. So if you're dealing with a hypertonic patient, it's very hard to open up that bite. And if you're dealing with a patient with a strong protrusive tongue thrust, it's going to be hard to close that bite and keep those teeth where you want them. So I think my greatest struggle has always been overcoming muscles that are working against my mechanics. The most important change in orthodontics is digital treatment. So not just intraoral scanning, but really now digital printing. But I think digital technology is the way we are moving. Our treatment planning has become digital, and now our treatment modality, our appliances are becoming digital as well. I think the incorporation of artificial intelligence is really interesting. I think if we're able to take the digital manufacturing, make it in-house, I think there's a great chance where we can be making not only our own brackets, but our own aligners in-house. And also how artificial intelligence plays a role with our treatment planning. Could you potentially take X-rays or digital scans and have that data analyzed, and you could have a series of steps or potential treatment plans with highest probability printed out for you? I think that's very real. I got involved with JCO reading it as a resident. It's that simple. I think it really started in residency, just falling in love with the articles in the early 2000s, with Dr. Kime as the editor, and then just starting to write. I wrote as a resident. I wrote Pearls as a resident, and then I started to write overview papers and now clinical techniques. The JCO is the journal that is clinically relevant. Every issue that you read, every case report, every Pearl, I want it to be something that you can take to the chair and apply immediately. It really is meant to be a continuation of residency. You have your instructor, that master clinician somewhere in the world, teaching you that technique, who's right by your side the entire way. The JCO is so important because it is useful. The JCO means clinical excellence. It really has always meant that. And we are going to be at the forefront, but we're also going to be current, and we're going to make sure that we are teaching proper clinical technique. It is really the meat and potatoes of what people want from case reports and technique reviews. So what the JCO means, the JCO is at the forefront of clinical education. Yeah, what I've learned from the JCO over the years is that the great teachers of our profession are within reach, in the sense that they love to teach. They want you to know how they are treating this case. So we all have many orthodontists that we look up to, but these are our authors, and they are accessible. They are available to answer questions. They are giving webinars. They will respond to emails from their papers. But it was so important to me as a resident to have articles from Zackerson or Bowman or Nanda or Melson, and to have these articles and just print them and keep them by my side. And these authors, these great leaders in our profession, they're available, and they're available to teach and to answer questions. That's what I love most about the JCO. You subscribe to the JCO because the amount of information that we have, not just in our journal, but also within our webinars, is immense. And I promise you, it is impossible not to pick up a manuscript, not to pick up an issue, and find incredible value in it. That's what this is about. We all have very busy lives. We all are doing the best we can with our schedule at work and at home. But I promise you, if you pick up the journal, and even if you only get through a few articles or only get through some of the webinars, the value there will cover the entire year. We cover so much incredible clinical information. It will help you on your challenging cases. And these are going to be cases that you're going to be struggling with: MARAs and herps, auto transplantations, gingival surgeries, palatal expansion with mini screws. All the things that we are struggling with, those are the articles that we want published, because I promise you, you will be able to take that information to the chair. I think the importance of doing less. I think when you were younger, you think everybody needs orthodontics, deserves orthodontics. I think you think everything should be ideal. But I think I always tell the story. I remember as a resident, a faculty member gave a lecture about single arch treatment, just treating the upper arch or just treating the lower arch. And it was a lecture that I could not comprehend. I was very hard on that lecture. I did not agree with it. But now I totally get it. And I think a lot of times we get into trouble by over treating. And I have learned in my career the value of being conservative, of waiting, of allowing the body to address some of the problems on its own. And what I really wish I learned in my career was the importance of slowing down and maybe being more conservative and simpler with my approach. The best advice for practicing orthodontist is not to worry about collection. I think when I started in my career, I was focused on collection goals. That's what I was taught by corporate managers, but really money should not cross your mind. And I think if you're doing good work, all of that stuff comes. But one of the articles, even though we have practice management articles in the JCO, they're never going to have a tilt about how to make more money. That's not what we're looking for. We're going to teach you how to be a great clinician, and the money aspect kind of comes with it. I think what I would like to teach a practicing orthodontist is to focus on doing great work and not worried about what your time per hour is or how to maximize profit or collection throughout the day. The best advice for residents is you don't have to have it all figured out. And I think actually what I'd like to add to that would be with that is work for a senior doctor. I touched upon this on one of my editorials where I think the biggest mistake that I made is I was so overconfident in my ability. I just went out and practiced on day one, and I started at a corporation where I was the only person in charge, and then I opened up my practice and I was the only person in charge, of course. But I would have really gained a lot of knowledge working as an associate for someone in private practice. I really stress that. It could have taught me so much. I don't know if I had the humility to be able to accept that position, but it is one of my great regrets. And I had to learn so many of my mistakes through trial and error. And again, those are trial and error on somebody's child or on somebody. And I have a lot of regret for that. And I wish I didn't have those mistakes. And if I could have learned underneath a senior doctor, I take a lot of pride as being that senior doctor with my associates saying, hey, listen, I know why you want to do this. And I wanted to do that too when I got out of residency, but this is why we're going to do it this way. And so if you have the ability, don't worry about what you think you're worth per day or what your per diem should be. If you find a mentor that can really help you, and a good mentor, someone who's practicing properly, someone who's not financially driven or too slick, but someone who's really practicing orthodontics the right way. If you can work for them for a year or two or longer, boy, I'll tell you, you'll have such a head start and you won't trip up the way I tripped up when I was in private practice. I think the clinical pearl that I am most known for is using a central incisor bracket on a substituted canine to hide the prominent canine root. That pearl was taught to me by another editorial board member, Dr. Sean Miller. But my favorite pearl, and the pearl that kind of goes along with what I have said previously, is that I think the best pearl that I can give you would be to not be afraid to slow down. I think all of my mistakes in practice, maybe in life, if I could say it, is by moving too fast. So nothing bad happens from slowing down. Nothing bad will happen from having a second consultation. Nothing bad will happen from stopping the appointment, brushing the teeth, putting in an 18-night tie or repositioning brackets and taking new records and reevaluating the case. I think sometimes we are just moving a tad too fast. We are moving in fourth gear and we need to be in third gear. And actually, the best way to be efficient is to go from A to B in a straight line. And I think many times we do round trip because we are just moving a little too fast and we are not hyper focusing when we're in the chair.